Hey chat, welcome to another Real Good Thursday. Thanks so much for joining in. I'm always caught off guard. Last few streams, I don't know why my transitions aren't working, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Thank you so much for joining us, joining in, whatever I was gonna say. If you don't know what Real Good Thursdays are, I stream every Thursday now, and I stream with members of Real Good AI, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. You may know, my wife Mandy is the executive director. Craig, who is also going to be on the stream, is the director of outreach. I am the board president. We are heavily involved in the organization all around. And if you don't know what Real Good AI does, it is an ethical AI nonprofit. We are working to make sure that because AI is here, because AI tech is infiltrating basically every part of life now, including at my doctor's office for some reason. We're working to make sure that AI is as good as it can be, that it's developed ethically, that the training data is sourced ethically, and hopefully in the long run that we'll be able to tell what training data specifically generative AI stuff is referencing. That's not the project we're working on currently, but that's like the big goal, you know? That's the dream, isn't it? Projects we are currently working on are actually just yesterday, Mandy went up and gave a class to some kids at a public library, introducing them to how to work with AI safely, how to be responsible, what it is and is not good at, that it lies, that it's not your friend, things of that nature. Also, we've been working on a project analyzing data to assess the impact of policies on the elderly unhoused population in the Orange County area. It's to help them guide what policies they should try and reinforce with funding or expand into other areas, what policies are not having the impacts you're looking for, stuff like this. We are aiming to have our methods, our science, do real good in the real world for real people. And so every Thursday we stream. Some Thursdays it's just me and Craig and other staff members. But every other Thursday we have guests. And this week we are joined by Simon Leblanc. I said he's nodding. He's not on screen yet. I'm about to put him on screen. But
Dr. Simon LeBlanc.
Sorry about that. Dr. Simon LeBlanc. Thank you so much for joining us. And luckily for you, chat, I'm not going to be the one asking most of the questions. We're also going to be joined by Dr. Imen Gormiri, who is a staff member at Real Good AI, and will be sort of leading the interview and introducing Simon. So I'm going to hand it over to Imen. Everybody play nice.
Before we jump in, we have all forgotten what's happening today.
It's the thing today. That's right.
So, all aboard.
Yeah.
All aboard.
If you haven't seen...
ahead.
Mandy. You talk about it.
Go ahead.
You do it. Okay.
You do it.
If you haven't seen chat, there were social posts today. Today is the kickoff of our first ever, but hopefully first annual fundraising push called Full Steam Ahead. We are trying to, actually we already have, but we are trying to recruit more as well. We have streamers who are going to be doing interesting streams, doing some creative stuff, putting on live streams, raising money for Real Good AI. They will be possibly talking about the mission, probably just entertaining and interacting with chat, but we are trying to, we're responsible. We want to be held accountable by you. We want to be funded publicly. We want to be accountable to you, the people who watch our streams and maybe donate and fund our organization or volunteer with our organization, which is also an opportunity that's available. And it should be fun. We already have a lot of streams on the calendar. We have a bunch of people who have not quite set their dates and times in stone yet, but from today until November 9th, Full Steam Ahead will be happening across some of your favorite creators' channels and some who you may not know yet, who you should go follow and watch and enjoy. And if you feel inclined and are lucky enough to be in a position that it's possible, we would love if you would choose to donate. I will have a donation link. Actually, don't see it happening in chat, so a little worried that the command I set up is not functional, but you can donate to my streams or any of our friends' streams if you go to realgoodai.org/fundraising. No, fundraising.
I put the link in chat. We're good.
If you go to that link, you can see a calendar of who's going to be streaming and when. You can see some more info.
That's not the link I put in. I put in the donation link. If
the streamlabscharity.com.
Our page.
You can go donate to that directly. Anyway, it is going to be a several weeks long event. So it's kind of a marathon, not a sprint. But today is the official kickoff, and it's very exciting. And I got so focused on this specific stream that I forgot we're doing that too. That's happening. You should check it out. And there are going to be lots and lots of really fun streams. And I'm going to be streaming. Mandy's going to be joining me for a stream on Halloween. It's probably going to be our big one, but potentially other ones. It's going to be
okay,
fun.
well, let's get to the fun part. This is one of those streams, so thank you, and please consider donating. We can't do what we're doing without money, so we appreciate it. And it's awkward to ask, but we appreciate you supporting us and supporting ethical AI in general. So now to the awesome interview.
Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone. Can you hear me? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, hi Simon, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Simon, I can give a quick introduction to who you are. So, you started as a scientist. So you have a PhD from Princeton University in applied mathematics, and so you've been working specifically on collective behavior, and I would like you to have like a quick explanation about what you did. And then after graduating, you kind of switched career from a researcher to a software engineer, and since then you've had more than 10 years of experience as a senior software engineer in different tech industries, but mostly industries. So first, can you explain what did you do during your PhD quickly?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So my PhD was about collective behavior of animal groups. Looks very different from software engineering. I was studying fish schools, doing mostly simulations, computer simulations, and math. Little bit of experimentation as well.
Oh, so you had a real experiments like with fish.
Yeah, exactly. So tanks, fish tanks like that are pretty shallow, and fish schools, golden shiners, was the species that we studied. They tend to like form schools of fish that are like pretty much flat, like a simple 2D layer, which is very convenient because if you put a camera on top of the tank, you can record like the position of each fish and see like how they move. So there were some experiments related to that, but otherwise it was a lot of writing software, which is kind of like where it started, to do simulation. It's called agent-based simulations, where like each animal is an agent. They follow simple rules. The goal is basically to see how the rules go from the individual level to group level behaviors that are emergent, that you don't expect them necessarily from the rules. So to give you a concrete example, like the rules would be you don't want to get too close to anyone. So if someone gets too close to you, you kind of try to avoid colliding with them. So you move in the direction to go away. You also don't want to be alone and out of your school. So if the neighbors around you get too far, you turn in the direction to kind of go in the same direction as them. And you can add a third rule that says like you kind of want to copy the alignment of your neighbors as well, so you try to align with them. And for instance, like with just these simple rules, you can get the school to behave in interesting ways. You can introduce conflict where like some people have kind of some people, some agents in this case, have a preference to go on one side versus another side or something like this, and see like how the group as a whole behaves.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we've seen it in nature, right? Like weird schools of fish in the ocean forming a ball, flocks of birds in the sky, and you think like one individual bird by itself is like like constrained in like communication, and how all these flocks like kind of spread the information and know what to do, and how they seem like they know what to do all collectively. But yeah, it's interesting, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
The real question is, do they make shapes like in Finding Nemo?
Uh, the big like the school of fish that like look like
Yeah,
a shark.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure it happens randomly. If you wait long enough.
There you go.
Okay. So we start by doing research, and then you decide to go to the field of software engineer. So you said a little bit about it. So during your research, you said like you did a lot of modeling in computer science. I think you specialize in computer vision, kind of like computer vision of these agents. So what brought you into the software engineer career afterwards, and why didn't you, for example, continue in academia or something?
Yeah, so yeah, it wasn't an easy decision, I guess. But I was really enjoying writing software during my PhD. So I naturally tried like a lot of different languages and technologies, and I enjoyed also like writing good code. Like sometimes scientists like try to just like get the answer they need, and that's all they care about. They don't really care about like the fact that the code is well written, well organized, and stuff like this. It's also, I mean, to their defense, like it's really hard to write good code when the requirements keep changing. When you're doing research, you don't really know the final things that you want. So, but anyway, so I really enjoy this. I actually was teaching assistant for a class of about like kind of good engineering practice for writing scientific software as well, and and yeah, it was really the part that I enjoyed most. I didn't enjoy writing papers as much, or like, some of the, even like giving talks, or some of the other responsibilities of a researcher. So after my PhD, I started like really, looking into maybe working as a software engineer. And I was terrified because I don't know, for some reason, like the picture I had in my head was like, I'm gonna write code all day. It's gonna be like boring. It looked like I would be kind of turning something that I like into something that I won't like anymore, because too much of a good thing probably is not. It's not
Yeah.
uh, but as soon as I got my first job as a software engineer, literally on the first day, I was like, wow, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly what I like to do. So, I
Mhm.
regretted it since then.
And did you start front end, back end, full stack? Like, what did you do, and what did you enjoy the most?
Yeah, so I guess full stack. Like, I was, so I tinkered a lot even before my PhD, but also during my PhD, doing a little bit of everything. So when I started on my first job, it was honestly a mix. Like, there was a good mix of front end and back end. And then, like, depending on the teams, like I moved, changed companies, changed teams, and at some points I was doing more backend. At some points, like these days, I'm doing more front end. Um,
Can we
so
back up a second? Will you explain to viewers who don't know what back end and front end
Yes, I
computing
was
are?
going
that's
to
a
ask.
very good point. Yes, yes. So the front end is basically what you see on the website. So the buttons, the lists, the chat, the like everything you see, the user interface. Basically, that's building the user interface, and that is code that typically executes in your browser. Everybody use their browser to go to the internet or use apps on their phone, something like this, and the code is there. Whereas the backend is the things that execute on the server. So, like, for instance, Gmail, you store like your emails and stuff like this. Every time your browser needs to open an email, you make a request to the backend to, say, like, basically give me the data I need, and then the front end receives the data and then like displays it in a certain way. So that's the difference. And so what we call a full stack engineer is an engineer that works on both. Some people kind of specialized in one area or another, but full stack, it means you do a bit of both. And the backend also like involves like databases and a bunch of technologies related to storing data, for instance.
I see. I see.
Is it like doctors, how like they define their specialty by like there's different personality traits that go with what you're choosing? Do you think the people who pick front end, back end, or full stack kind of things are different, or is it just where you happen to land?
Yeah, I think it can be different. Like, for instance, like a designer, is focusing mostly on the user interface. So if they try software engineering, they'll probably be more interested in the front end, at least initially. And some backend engineers like really don't like to think too much about design or things like this. Like they like to think more of systems. So I don't know. Trying to think of a good analogy. Like, I guess doctors could work. It's a bit like
So
if
basically, front end would be with a kind of an artistic vibe, kind of user friendly, nice design, kind of architecture in it, right?
Yeah, so there is design. There's a bunch of things. One of them that's very important is accessibility. So making sure that the design works for everybody. So it means also including like blind users who use a screen reader to perceive the user interface through sound. Making sure that the website can be used. I mean, when I say website, it could be an app, it could be a bunch of things. Can be used only with the keyboard because some people are not able to use the mouse, for instance. And it even includes things like the language you use, like making sure that things are translated, for instance, or even like providing a dark theme to make sure that people working in dark conditions, if you need to work late at night, for instance, it's much easier on the eyes if you have a dark theme. So there's really a lot of things going into there, but there's also a lot of things going into the backend. So like I think maybe a good analogy could be like if you design a plane or something like this, then some people are going to be looking into details of the engines. Some people are going to be looking into like the feet of the chair, and that's like very different concerns, but they are all equally important because in the end, like you need the plane to be flying and comfortable and safe, and so yeah.
Okay, so you started your career, I think, 10 years ago, where AI was not like that hyped. I would say. Um, we hear all the time in the news right now. There's like this term vibe coding going on. I'm sure like you learned everything old school kind of way. And so my question to you is, can you explain what is this vibe coding? Did you see, I guess, a big change with the introduction of with standardization of AI into the software engineer job, and how the job changed from what you start, how you started at the beginning, and how it is right now nowadays?
Sure, yeah. So let's talk about AI first and then vibe coding maybe later. But yeah, so AI definitely changed the work of software engineer pretty rapidly. I mean, in the past, couple years, basically. But it's not like, it's not like such a fundamental change. It feels to me like it's more like better tools. So of course, like when you suddenly get better tools, you want to use them, and I can give you examples like of the past. There's a famous XKCD, like it's a webcomic that says like real programmers. The first person says like real programmers don't use languages like Python or something. They use C. And then someone says no, real programmers use assembly language, which is even like kind of older and more like close to the machine kind of language. And then someone says like no, it's actually like if you use cosmic rays to like change the bits in your hard drive or something like this. So what I'm saying with this is like basically like through the history of programming, like there's been new tools that have been introduced that made the craft better, more efficient, or just more pleasant. And so like one example, for instance,
When you
like,
say tools, is it like new languages, or is it like new pre-packaged things that helps you like start with something? Like, what do you mean by new tools?
yeah, so I'll give you a bunch of examples. So one example, very simple, is syntax coloring. So when you write code, you write basically text. It's a text file. And back in the day, you wanted to write text. Basically, it was just black and white. Like it's just like very simple characters, like if you typed in a Word document. But one thing that was introduced is editors that were aware of like the syntax of code, which is very precise, and introduced colors. So when you look at a piece of code in any whatever Google Images or whatever, you'll always see like nice colors, like bright pink, blue, green, and stuff like this that highlight different words in the code and stuff like this. So that's one very simple example of like a tool that makes programming easier, because you can very easily spot like if you forget something somewhere, like, the colors are going to be wrong and you're going to spot it immediately.
Okay.
There are also like definitely like languages. So what I was saying earlier about like assembly language being like a very kind of difficult language, because you have to think, do everything in your head, like it. And so languages were introduced, like C back then was considered a high level language, because when you write it feels more like English. You say like if, and then you type your condition, then, or I mean there's no then, else, do that. You have loops, you have like kind of like programming construct that make it easier. And then like there are like even higher level languages like Python, which is very often chosen for like beginners programmers, because it's even more simple in some ways. Like you don't have to worry about declaring variables in advance. You can you don't worry about types. It's just like
Okay, so there's an evolution of languages, but what about vibe coding? And
yeah. So what AI changed is like even okay, before, just one more, like before AI, like there's also like code completion. So you have IDEs, integrated development environments, which is basically like a software to write code, and it's aware of like the different files and stuff like this, and allows you to jump. Like for instance, you have a function that's used somewhere, you can jump to the definition of that function, so it opens the file directly to the right place and stuff like this. And you have like code completion. So you start typing the name of a function, and it's gonna propose like different options. Sometimes it's called IntelliSense.
It's like when you text and you write a sentence and then it completes the sentence for you.
Yeah, exactly. And so the first thing that was introduced related to AI was, I mean, the first thing, I don't know if exactly the first one, but like GitHub Copilot worked a bit like this. Like it kind of completed, but instead of completing just based on like the thing that was like just you were doing, like completing the name of a variable, the name of a function, it started completing entire lines and even like entire functions. So like if you start writing a function called sort, well, just because like the AI has been trained on like tons of code that looks similar and stuff like this, it knows basically, oh, I know how to write a function about sorting, so I'm gonna just like propose an entire like solution, directly. And so that was great, but also like it feels a bit awkward sometimes because it kind of like interrupts you, like stuff like if you know how to program, you're about to do it yourself, like it proposes you this thing, and that now you have to kind of like review the code and then like check if that's actually what you want. If it's not what you want, you kind of lost a bit of time like reading this. So some people didn't like this. I have colleagues who just like try this and say like, oh no, that's not for me, like it's bad. But I mean, these kind of things, like first I've gotten better, like the inference of like what you want to do next has gotten better, to the point now that it feels like sometimes it's reading your mind. It's pretty amazing, but it takes a lot of you kind of need to get used to it, and it's funny because the tools also like kind of change the way you work. So like, for instance, if you start by writing a comment that describes a bit more what you want to do, then the completion is going to be much better because, it will have more information to start with. So, it also changes the way you...
So from what I hear is that it is quicker in proposing new write-ups, complete written code, pieces of code. The issue is it may not be what you want to do. So my question is like, do you still have to know how to code nowadays, or just like blindly use AI for vibe coding? Does it work like this? Like, do you see a less and less need to really know how to code and just relying on vibe coding? And do you see like a software engineer job in the long term kind of disappearing?
A lot of different questions at the same time. Also, just to kind of clarify, like what I was describing was kind of like the GitHub Copilot of 2 years ago, or I don't know exactly the timing, but there's a lot more like nowadays about this. And again, like not even going to vibe coding exactly, but let me just like kind of finish the history of like AI for coding, and we're almost there. So the next thing, I guess, that was pretty useful is kind of more like a chatbot interface. So, ChatGPT, Gemini, you can ask questions, or even GitHub Copilot, you can ask a question in the browser, say like, how do you do this? Like, can you write a piece of code to solve this problem and stuff like this? And then like the IDEs, the code editors, basically started integrating the chatbots directly in the code and introduced something called like basically like the chat box was able to interact with the code, so read the code, which is very important, and also write to the code. So you could like kind of converse and use the chatbot or the AI or the LLM, whatever, as kind of an assistant. So you say like, hey, please update the function to do this and that, and it's funny, I say please because just like kind of a reflex of like, as if you were trying to talk to someone.
To real human, yeah.
And so so then the AI basically like does the change to your code, and you kind of need to like approve, what you want, or like, review the code. This is where like we're getting into vibe coding. So vibe coding is when you basically use the chatbot to build code, but without really reviewing the code. So you just keep going. Basically, you say like, okay, do a page that does this. No, it doesn't do that. Please, fix it or something like this. But then you don't look at the code, and you just like let the AI do its own thing. And it's really fun for like building, the demo of a product. Like it's actually very impressive. You can, get something out of nothing, like just like plain English instructions. And it really like builds. You can see like the software being built and doing stuff, and you can add functionality like this. And so it's honestly like an amazing feat of engineering that we can do that. Like, turn just like vague requirements in plain English into code that works. But the thing is, like, code that works has some limits. So the problem is, like, if you don't review the code, then the AI is going to do whatever it wants, and sometimes whatever it wants is just like solving the problem at hand without like thinking like an engineer would about the big picture, about like making sure that the code is maintainable, is like stable, has like security built in. So vibe coding is not really like something that you can do for actual software that you want to build a company around or something like this. It's fun for like small projects, like you have an idea for like a quick thing to help for a tool for yourself, basically, like that you're not going to share with anybody else. Sure, you can use Vibe for this. It's fun, but the problem is like it's not going to build something that's well architected, that is resilient, that is scalable, that is and you can try to kind of force your way by saying like, please write good code, please make sure that you think about security and stuff like in the chatbot. But it's if you don't review the code, then it's not going to produce.
Okay, so it
I
has
have a
to
question
have.
about that first.
Yeah, go ahead.
though. Is that just your personal opinion? Have you seen people misusing it, or do you think that that's the general sentiment among lots of
Software
coders?
engineers, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely, it's my personal opinion. I mean, the people I interact with, I think, would agree with that sentiment. Is like, are there people who believe vibe coding solves everything? I would say tech executives, maybe, because they don't know. Like, we hear stories about.
They're the dangerous ones, right?
Like, we hear stories about people getting laid off because we don't need as many engineers now that we have
AI
and chatbots. The thing is, like, a good comparison that people use often is like, you have a very motivated intern that can write code very quickly, but doesn't really do like have a lot of background or knowledge or something like this, and doesn't really care, like, so it's good at producing produce code much faster than any human would, but the quality doesn't mean like
Yeah, it seems like there still need the supervision of a human competent software engineer with it.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, like, I mean, part of software engineering is also like reviewing people's code. That's half of my time maybe I spend like reading other people's code rather than writing my own code. Every time you push a change, and I think that's kind of like the industry standard. It's not just not all companies do that, but really they should. But you never push a change straight to production. Like, you always get it reviewed by other engineers, and it's not a question of like you don't trust your own engineers to write good code or something. It's like, it's just a better way to produce code with fewer bugs, and to multiple reasons. Like, you also like spread knowledge. I personally love code review. It's something that you learn a ton of things by reading other people's code, and you get to kind of maintain a very high bar by commenting on other people's code and asking them to change things.
So you
Yeah.
don't see a threat of like vibe coding kind of like wiping out the software, because that's what we hear in the news. Software engineers are doomed, and like there's no point of learning because like nowadays an AI can do it. So you're not part of the people who think like we don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, the threat is this thinking. I feel like the one of the biggest maybe issue is that if we start replacing junior engineers with AI,
Mm-hmm.
then who are going to be the next senior engineers? Because you need to learn the trade. Like
I
you
see.
have to go through the steps of being junior and not doing what you're doing and getting, to learn from senior people to
Mm-hmm.
become good at software engineering. And uh,
Oh,
and so
to become senior so you can supervise and know what you're doing.
yeah, exactly. Because I mean, as I was saying, like the AI needs a lot of supervision. It's very interesting to see how different people use it. So when you look a junior engineer trying to use an LLM for coding, they
Mm-hmm.
usually don't get great results. The way they frame the questions and stuff like this, like they don't think in the same way as a senior engineer would, and they can lose a lot of time because, like I was saying, for like when you get a suggestion, you need to kind of evaluate it. While a senior engineer who reads code all day and knows how to evaluate it, like can do it very quickly. Like they see something, they can automatically tell, no, this is, ignore that, or like, yes, this is good, I give. For a
Mm-hmm.
junior software engineer, it's much harder, and they will kind of accept bad suggestions and maybe do it
I
a few
see.
times, and then kind of like get stuck into a corner and they cannot get out of it very easily. Um,
Yeah,
and
so you need the experimenting and the testing of yourself in order to do that.
yeah,
Okay.
the part about like education, like you need to practice, like, you need to spend 10,000 hours to be an expert at anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the case also for junior engineers, like to be able to understand and to be able
Mm-hmm.
to judge basically like good code versus bad code, then they need to go like to have this kind of education.
So you still advise people to learn how to code.
Yeah, but I also advise them to learn how to use the AI tools because I think like they're not going away. I mean, we can talk about AI bubble crashing stuff. Like, that's another story. But like, uh, these are very valuable tools for programming. Like I use them on a daily basis. They do like make me more efficient. I feel like
I see.
give you an example. Like when you need to do something in a code base that you're less familiar with. So even within the same company, there's a lot of code these days for like tech companies. So obviously, like, not a single person has read all of the code. So you sometimes need to
Are you
touch.
talking about like legacy code from the beginning of like the company, or like different languages and different styles and different what? Yeah.
Both and more. So it's just like, I don't know, like if you think of Google, to give you an example, like it's a huge company. Like there's code for Gmail, Google Maps,
Mhm.
and this is just like the what you see, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Google products you see, but like underneath, like in the back end, again, like there's a ton of services to support all of this and stuff like this. There is like huge amounts of code and nobody has read it all, and sometimes you need to touch code that you don't own, in the sense like it's not your team's direct responsibility, you're not familiar with, or sometimes you're just like starting, you've joined the company recently, you don't know yet where to
Mhm.
touch. And for this, like AI is amazing because you can ask questions about the code in plain English. So like, where does this thing happen? Like there are other ways to do it. Like we did it before AI. So like before, for instance, like I would probably like look at a piece on the UI, like say like, okay, there's a bug when we click this button. So I'm gonna search for like literally like the string on that button to see like where it's coming from, and I have to like follow threads.
Manually do it. Okay.
It
Mm-hmm.
would take like 15 minutes to just like find the place where like the bug is located, and then you can start like fixing it. Whereas with AI, you can ask questions about the code. it's really good at like ingesting tons of data and giving you kind of like summarizing. It's really good at summarizing. It's when you ask it to generate, so you give it like a small input, it needs to produce a large input. It's going to make up things. It kind of has to. But if you ask it to kind of reduce a lot of data into a small amount of data, typically it's very good at this. So to ask questions about a code base that you're less familiar with, that's super useful, and it's super useful for a ton of other things, honestly. So I would recommend to learn programming and learn how to use the tools as well. The thing is, like, when you're learning programming, like if it's a new language and you need to learn, sometimes you need to turn off the AI because basically you need to use it responsibly. It's like, you're teaching math to your kids, you don't give them a calculator of the bat, because otherwise, like, how will they memorize their like multiplication table and stuff like this.
I'm reading also questions and remarks from the chat. So someone is saying, as a recent computer engineer grad, it is nearly impossible to get an entry level without 3 or 5 years prior experience. 9 out of 10 internship do not count unless it was with a company that you're applying for. Do you have this like I know, so part of your job also is to recruit, right? To do the interview and find the new talent. Do you have this feeling about like the entry level jobs and this difficulty nowadays because of AI, or maybe it's not because of AI, that like entry level jobs are becoming impossible to get? What's your comment on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was already like, I think it's always been a bit difficult to find your first job, because that's true. Like, people tend to want you to have experience, initially. I'm sure it's gotten worse because of this feeling that, AI does the job of a junior engineer. So, like, we want to hire to skip that step, which doesn't make any sense. Uh, yeah, I don't know if I had like good recommendations to this. Like, I think you have to play the game. Like, if they want to see experience, then you can start counting your, schooling, like all the projects you might have done,
Do
like
you have
build
like to build portfolio of things you want to do? Like, what's the, for example, I when you do the interviews, do you have like this lead code? And lead code is like the training kind of to interview for a software engineer. Do you have this lead code style questions for the people that interview with you, or you are looking for more specific real job of engineers? Comment on that. Comment of like how usually your company or other company now is hiring, and do you need like to prepare yourself by like working hard to master the lead code style questions, and or there's something else you should work for?
Yeah, so let me explain just quickly how the typical software engineering interview works. So yeah, you have to they test you on the basics, like the fundamentals of engineering, which is actually something. So that's what we call lead code question. Is like write kind of a solution to like a standard problem. You have to write code within, it's limited in time. You have like 30 minutes or 1 hour to write code that solves very specific problems, like a sorting problem, for instance. And you have to make sure that you use the optimal algorithm. So you need to make sure that you use as little memory and especially as little time as possible to solve the issue, even if the input is really large. So these are like very kind of standard question. There's a ton of them. Like, this lead code is just the name of a website where you can like kind of take this kind of technical quizzes, like to solve problems. They have different difficulties. And I feel like this kind of question actually tend to favor people fresh out of college, because that's where you learn these things. Whereas like when you work as a software engineer, it doesn't really reflect your real work, and so you kind of get rusty on solving these kind of problems because you just don't practice them as often. That's actually very painful, because they give you these kind of questions really like every time you change jobs. I think people are trying to like remove them now, like for once you reach a certain level, because it's annoying, for a senior engineer sometimes to like brush up their lead code before being able to take
But
it.
doesn't AI help with that? I feel like you can cheat your way out
Yes.
of it through AI.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Have you seen like
Oh
people
yeah.
could cheat with that?
Definitely, yes, yes. So there are two things. The first thing is resumes. So what you see these days, there's a lot of resumes that match exactly the job description. So basically, like people use AI to generate a resume by feeding it the job description and say like, give me the resume that works for this. So they will mention every single keyword of like technology that you say like are like recommended or required for the job. They will produce like resumes that basically are guaranteed to pass the filters. So the recruiters, they use sometimes automated software to like kind of filter resumes for applications, and so they
So
are
this
like
is fair. This is fair because the recruiters are already using AI to kind of filter. So I
I don't know if
see
it's
it as like a fair like countering that by like modifying your resume to match it, so you can go through the first round.
it's fair if it's real. The thing is like some people just like will add things that they don't know about just because they want to get their foot in the door. So it, I see what you mean. Like, it can be fair, like, to kind of fight back the automated system that recruiters use. That sometimes, if you don't write, like, if you have the correct experience, but you don't write it the correct way in your resume, you could get, just like sorted out by the algorithm. So yes, in that sense, like, it's fair to fight this back. But sometimes people will
I'm reading from the chat. I've heard rumors that some naughty people are using invisible statement hidden in their resume that the AI reads, but the human eye doesn't.
Yes.
What does it mean?
Yeah, exactly. So if you just write like in a PDF of your resume or something like this, you write text in white, so like someone looking at the page will see white on white, so they won't see anything. But then like the hidden text might say like, I have 12 years of experience in Kubernetes or something like, and then the resume scanner will not see the colors. They will just look at the content of the text and will see like, oh, like there's this extra experience, I'm gonna keep that person or something. So yeah, that's definitely one way to cheat as well.
Okay.
And so the other cheating part, which is even worse, is people use AI as like, you can do it on your phone or you can do it on your screen. Like there's an app for this, or multiple apps probably. But the AI basically is listening to your conversation in real time and providing like answers. So I'm the interviewer. I ask you a question. The person who is taking the interview like has their phone next to their screen, so you don't even see it if they share their screen, for instance. The phone is listening to my question and writing answers to my question on the phone, and so people can just like still like kind of look at me in the eye almost, like, because their phone is just next to it, and read from their phone and then give me answers.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And you sometimes see that. Sometimes you see like the eyes, like, the funny thing that I've noticed recently for these kind of interviews is like, you ask a question and people like think about it, and you see their eyes are going do while they think, and then like after like 30 seconds of like thinking, like they give you like an answer that sounds like very too good to be true. So
I see.
you
And
people
so
like, it's funny because you can in an interview you kind of ask questions to try to go deeper on subject, and you expect people to at some point not be able to go that deep, but some people like clearly like don't seem like very good, like for some reason they're able to go as deep as you want on any question because the AI basically keeps telling them the answer, and they don't like try to
So
make it great.
you're saying like you can kind of spot when it is a cheating AI who is responding to your questions.
Yeah, I mean, you can spot. It's very hard to be sure. You can guess, and that's the difficult part. I feel like you can have suspicion sometimes. So there are multiple rounds of interviews. So if I do an interview and it's not the last one, I'm gonna say like, hey, I noticed like I have strong suspicion that they're using AI. make sure to check for this, for the next interview or something
But
like that.
I feel the easy solution is to remove this like lead code kind of like technical thing that like everyone can cheat with AI.
So
We had a stream last couple months ago about essay letters for universities, and a professor who was streaming with us was telling us like, yeah, he doesn't believe that because like you can write whatever you want for your essay or whatever application in college, and does it mean it's true, does it mean it's like great? Some people with AI can embellish everything, and like what's the point? It's like you are using so it's like a robot judging the work of another robot, like an LLM judging another LLM. So what's the point of it then?
yeah, it's a good point. So we have, I mean, there are multiple interviews. Like the cheating can be for the coding part, but it can also be for like system design, where it's more like questions and like a whiteboarding exercise of designing a system from end to end. And so yeah, it doesn't have to be coding. Like I've had a case where I saw someone like accidentally like switch tabs or something like this, and I could see like the kind of fully written solution in their tab.
Oh
I
my
said, what
god.
was this? And then they dropped the call. So that was kind of a red-handed, like absolutely no doubt about the cheating there.
Yeah.
Very often like it's not that clear. um, and so I mean, we, like through the multiple rounds, like we try to evaluate a candidate on multiple things. So it's not just the coding. It's also, you can often sense like the behavior, like, if you ask questions, y- the technical abilities, it depends on the level. So like, if you hire someone like that's fairly junior, the technical abilities, it's okay. Like they don't need to know everything. That's not what we want. We want something that can learn fast. And so you can kind of ask your questions about this. Like you throw kind of a curveball and you see like how are they able to think on their feet to solve the problem. And that's where like, you can see if an answer is kind of too good to be true. Like, if you ask a question that you don't really expect them to be able to answer and they're able to answer, that's a good
Yeah.
sign. A good interviewee would admit that they don't know, and I've had an interview this morning actually, and someone, was asked a question and said like, I don't know, like, I don't know about this particular thing. That was a good answer. Like, it's great. Like, I prefer people who admit that they don't know that people who make up things. So the behavior evaluation is sometimes more important than the technical
So
one.
then, in the same breath of that, like, what about if you do like some exams at the university, you do it open book? Why
Mhm.
don't you allow people with open ChatGPT and try to find an answer for whatever you're asking? They would show, because once they are recruited, they have access to ChatGPT and other LLMs, right? So it's not like they're forbidden to use it.
Yep.
So wouldn't you prefer someone honest who would like tell you, okay, I know how to use the tool ChatGPT, and show you good skills of like critical skills of like I
Mhm.
can filter through the noise of ChatGPT and get you the right answer. Would that be acceptable?
I think so. Yeah, we haven't tried that at my current company, but I think we could try that. It's yeah. The question is like, would the interviewer be able to really tell? Like the goal of the interview is to take a decision. So you need to kind of like, you know, dig until you can find like, the proper decision at the end. Uh, would like having ChatGPT kind of be distracting? I mean, I feel like you can evaluate them on their like prompting skills, almost like, are they writing good prompts that lead to the answer, and ultimately like are able to review the thing that the AI is doing and stopping them in time to solve the
Mhm.
problems. Yeah, I think it's possible, but it might require, a bit of like adjustment and learning how to do this. It's not easy. The tools are changing constantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, typically when you give an interview, like it's not necessarily closed book in the sense like, if they want to openly, like they say like, oh, I know like there's this library that I can use, but I forgot the the proper like interface or something like this, like you can let them open a tab and search for it, depending on the type of an interview. So yeah, it's hard. Like it's really hard to evaluate. I feel real world programming. Like sometimes actually some companies give take home challenges. Like they tell you to write code and send it back, a couple of days later. Which I like. I think it's a good idea, but then of course, it's very open to cheating. Not cheating with AI, like it's fine to use AI, but like cheating with, getting help from someone. Like, does it tell you that the person is actually going to be able to do these kind of things? I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard when there's like a human factor in it. It's hard. I have some questions from the chat. So, what are the qualities the industry looks for in a younger people seeking jobs? Do you think it applies across disciplines?
So the software industry, I feel like you want people who know their fundamentals. Like they need to be able to know, like the time complexity of an algorithm and stuff like this, like very kind of basic things that all software engineers should know. But the knowledge, like we don't expect a depth of knowledge, coming out of the university, because that's the things you acquire on the job. So that's why like companies tend to evaluate the fundamentals, because that's kind of like you don't even need to go to university to learn this. You can learn them on your own, but you need like a little bit of at least like common language and this kind of fundamentals. And then I think the attitude, like the interview tries to test if you can think, problem solve live in a sense. So part of the attitude is like very simple. Like you need to ask questions, to listen to feedback, to be receptive to feedback. So like if you start doing something incorrectly and your interviewer kind of gives you hints, and if you're not able to like seize the hints, then it's a bad sign. But if you like listen carefully to what they're saying, and they might not tell you explicitly, because that would be kind of, you might already be on the wrong path, but like they might say like, are you sure about that, or something like this. And like if you're able to like pause and say, oh, like he's asking me if I'm sure about that, like that's a hint that I might be doing something wrong. You think about it and say, oh yeah, okay, now like I see I should probably do it this way instead. And that being able to justify like why you're doing things all the time, that's the most important thing. I don't know. I mean, I think this probably applies to a lot of disciplines as well. Like you want critical thinking, basically. Like
Yeah. It certainly feels that way. Also, so what do you think is the perfect timing to learn coding? Like, would you advise it for kids, for example, to start like learning basis through Scratch or something else, or is something that you can pick up wherever? Like, it doesn't have to be like as early to be a good software engineer. What was the case for you? How did you started your interest?
Yeah. So for me, I was interested in computers when I was, I don't know, teenager. And like initially it was just like really literally using computers. Could be anything. I was not a big gamer, but like, could be simple games and stuff like this. But I was just like curious, I guess. And I remember like, so I was a Mac person at that time. Like I really liked Mac for some reason. There was this magazine called SVM Mac, and they gave like CDs with like shareware and freeware and stuff like this. And there was this thing, a piece of code. I ended up like opening a piece of code just to render like a hat in 3D. A really random thing, really old. But I remember like being just fascinated by like, wow, like rendering something in 3D was like something that I thought was like super exciting. It was like maybe even before Toy Story, or like before it was kind of mainstream to do 3D things. It was kind of early 3D. And there was this code, and I was able to like change a number and like it would render slightly differently. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And I had no idea what it was. Like I had no idea what was the code. So I think that's my earliest memory of coding. And then I discovered that my calculator, it was a graphic calculator, TI-8 in high school, could do code, but I had no idea of like code. Like I haven't really, I hadn't seen code, learn code or anything like this. And I remember like trying things kind of at random. Like there was this for, I had no idea what for was, but by trial and error, I discovered like it's a loop, and you can loop and do things repeatedly or something like this. And so I started like kind of building games on my graphic calculator, and that's how kind of I learned. But then I went back to my computer and said like, I think I remember Googling how do you build iTunes. I was like, okay, like my computer is doing thing. iTunes was like fantastic app at the time. I was like, even like build something like this, and I found the answer was like you have to learn C. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn C. So I searched like how do you learn C, and I ended up like on a website that had tutorials.
I see. So this is in the 90s. Yeah. Old school 90s.
Yes.
I see.
And
Did
yeah,
you?
so I learned C, and then I just like kind of loved it, and started learning other languages for fun and stuff like this. Not really building anything, but just like trying things out.
Okay, I have a Gen Z person coming and tell you what's the first language, what's the language I should start learning. What would you answer?
Mm-hmm. People learn Python typically as their first language.
Do you like Python?
I don't, but
Why?
What?
well, because there are no types, which might feel easier, but I feel like it's kind of a trap of like, if you think about types, you get a better like mental model. Like it's easier to get started in Python. Like the learning curve starts like really low. But then I feel like sometimes if you kind of take something that's a little bit harder initially, then you kind of get a better start and understand things better. So I guess now I have to recommend a good type language to start. You can, I know, so people will say like you can add types in Python and stuff, yes, but maybe I don't know, C++ is maybe a bit too complicated. Go, I really like Go. I feel like Go is kind of like a much better C. It's a language that's like very opinionated. Like there's only one way to do each thing. It's it's fast, it's powerful, but it's not
Go. I never heard about Go. What is Go?
Go. The language, initially it was created by Google.
We've never used it in research in scientific computing. We use Python all the time.
Yeah. So the thing, in science, like there are so many Python packages that it kind of became the de facto language for science. If you need like performance software, like if you do astronomy, where like you have like petabytes of like telescope data to analyze and stuff like this, I'm sure people don't use. They might use Python, but there are cases for like better languages than this. But
what did you use for your research? I'm curious.
Yeah. So
when you were a scientist,
I used a bunch of things. So I actually used Go for some of my simulations. Otherwise, I started using Julia, which is a language that was developed at MIT, I think, for like kind of be a replacement for scientific computing. So
Julia, you said Julia. Okay.
Julia, yeah. I used MATLAB a lot before, and MATLAB is really nice, kind of like Python, like really nice for getting started and
plotting. Yeah,
exactly. There's a lot of like it's for science basically. So there's a huge standard library of scientific, code and things that are useful for science. It's called MATLAB because it's like the matrix language. So matrix are like a math thing that is used a lot in science engineering, and so like there are some like choices that were made for MATLAB, like basically made like some very good choices for for scientists.
Yeah.
One of them kind of random, but like arrays are indexed at 1. The order, like, well, it's going into too much details, but
Not to be nerdy, but I think Fortran 90 was better than MATLAB for my
no, yeah.
choices.
So I mean, Fortran 90 was the precursor that like it was kind of the same thing. Like Fortran is like basically the low-level language that
Yeah, that's what we
introduced kind of
learned in
matrix multiplication, as part of the standard library, and column, like there's like the Fortran column order and the C column order, and for mathematician it totally makes sense to use the Fortran column order because the vectors in the matrix are stored like contiguously.
I see in the chat people are saying Fortran, yuck.
Fortran 90, it's, not
Yeah, so it
completely over.
depends. Yeah, I would say like it depends what you're doing. I'm guessing like in industry, software engineer is not the same as a scientist doing science, and the whole software experience for each of them have different like needs. So for sure. Um, okay, so uh, I have different now kind of switching gears. What do you think about AGI and how it's going to replace all of us in the near future, apparently?
Yeah.
So,
So AGI, just to remind people, is also called like the singularity. It's like the point. I mean, it's what's it called? Artificial general intelligence. It's the notion that at some point we might build an AI that is smarter than humans, and that also means like from then on, humans wouldn't be the leading kind of species on the planet, and then like all bets are off to what will happen to us.
so the AGI would not need a supervision software engineer supervising the softwares that AI would read, right?
Well, no, the AGI would be the president, CEO, everything. They wouldn't need us. Like it's kind of the matrix. Like we might stay there, like in bubbles of like wires plugged into us or something to just pull our energy. No, I don't know. So personally, like I think like we're not getting close to AGI yet. The progress that we've seen recently in AI is basically just one thing. It's LLM, large language models, and the name LLM is actually very nice because it tells you exactly what it is. It's a language model. We've managed to translate between like plain English and like to understand plain English basically. So there's a field of science called natural language processing. So I think it's a huge advance for this. Like since I was a kid, I always dreamed of being able to talk to the house or the car or kind of the Knight Rider. And I always thought like the interface of the future is this, like it's just voice where you talk to a virtual assistant that is basically as smart as a human. You can see that in a lot of movies as well, like Iron Man. And so we've made it, like we are now able to kind of converse in English in a way that's English or any other languages, honestly, like that's also the cool thing, in a way that feels like super natural, and that's awesome. Like that's just very useful. The thing is like so these language models, that's it, like they model basically human language, and they give the illusion, because language is so important. That's how we think. We think in English. We don't think in like shape or complicated things. Like we kind of use words in our head to think. So just being able to imitate human language so well makes you think that there's cognition, there's like thinking going in there. And there's none. There's none. The languages are just like able to produce great sounding language. Even though like companies are trying to send you like thinking models and stuff like this, it's again like just using language to kind of break down problems into parts. Like instead of saying like produce the answer, you say like, okay, before producing the answer, produce a plan how you're going to think about the different things and stuff like this. So just by using language, you're able to kind of go pretty far and make it look like you're doing smart things, and actually doing pretty smart things. Like when I use the AI to code, it feels like I have an assistant that can really help me. I can rely on for some stuff. Sure, makes mistakes, but like, still like is pretty effective. And
Yeah.
so we have this, but then there's much more to intelligence than language. Language is really important.
Mhm.
I'm not even sure that it's necessary for intelligence. Like, there are some intelligent species, like your dogs or cats are pretty intelligent. Like, they can do smart things and stuff like this. They don't talk. I don't think they have a language. Like, sure, they have like probably a little bit of a language, like sniffing another dog. This is probably a way to communicate, but yeah. So uh, what I'm saying is like we need other kind of revolutions before we can reach AGI. There's a book by a Berkeley professor, I forget the name, but about AI. He says like we probably need like a few more breakthrough, like maybe like 3 or something like this before we can get that. And breakthroughs are impossible to predict. So even if we
So
put
for
together,
you, the AGI is not like the next decade or something.
no, I mean, if we keep investing a ton of money, like we can accelerate breakthroughs probably. But I don't even know if we invest the money in the right place. Like right
Yeah.
now, that's another topic I'm sure we'll cover. But like,
So yeah, I have a question from the chat. Where do you see AI going in the future based off your experience
yeah,
in the field?
so LLM, so yeah, LLMs are here to stay again. Like that's a great tool, being able to use language, even though like they are currently like extremely costly to train and create. Like once they are created, the training is the very expensive part. So collecting all the data and like training the model is very expensive, but then using them isn't that expensive. And also currently they're still expensive, like especially like the biggest models of each of the famous tech companies are quite expensive to run, but there are ways to make them like these companies haven't spent any time trying to optimize. Like there was the release of like DeepSeek that made
Mhm.
a lot of noise because basically like for 10th of the price they were able to do a model that did as good as the leading models. And
Mm.
I expect that we'll see a lot of optimization like this further. There's an example that I saw recently that's amazing, where like someone was able to put an LLM, like a voice, literally like voice LLM, on a washing machine on a little like chip that costs less than $10, and feed it kind of the user manual for the washing machine, and then like you press a button, you ask your question in plain English, and it gives you, tells you things about your washing machine. So like,
What do
hey,
you want to know
uh,
from your washing machine?
no, so the point of this is to show you that you can actually like, so this is using, there's no internet connection, nothing. Like everything is on the chip that costs less than $10,
Mhm.
and you push a button to get like basically basic support. So you say like, push a button and say, hey, my washing machine is not washing the top rack or something like this. What can I do? And the thing will answer with voice and tell you, oh, it's possible that the thing is plugged. Make sure to check this pipe or something like this. So you can do like basic self
Okay, so
service.
it's like an intelligence on the manual of the washing machine. Instead of you
Yeah,
turning the pages and see what's wrong,
yeah,
the LLM can extract the information from it.
yeah. And
Oh my gosh, imagine this with like IKEA furniture telling you how to put it together step by
so
step as you do it.
that's the thing. Like, given the price, you can imagine that on anything. Like, it means like no internet connection. That's the thing. Like, the big companies like OpenAI and stuff like this, they want you to be hooked to their product. Like, you need to talk to ChatGPT because that's the best. But like, if we can do this on the cheap, like really on like small embedded things that don't need internet connection, then it's just like very promising for like tons of applications. And so what my point I think is like,
But
even though
then they
like
don't collect data from you. It's not interesting. You're not interested.
I know for them, yeah, but we, if the AI bubble bursts and stuff like this, I think we'll be left with a lot of open models like this that then like people will start optimizing, like just researchers, and there will also be a lot of like AI talent that get out of jobs and have time to like look into these things. And once we optimize these models, make them like run on commodity software, on commodity hardware, and it's going to be very cheap, then there's going to be language everywhere. Like it's going to be kind of the my dream when I was a kid of like talking to my house, talking to my car, talking to different things. It's going to be possible. So that's going to be, I think, pretty interesting. But for AGI, it's impossible to predict, when things will happen. But currently, like there are no signs that we are close to
But
getting it there.
the scary part of it is like, do you think that the big actors of this AGI competition have us as human interest in their mind? That's what scares most of us, is that are they doing it for the interest of humanity, or they're doing it for the money?
Of course, for the money. I mean, there's no question about this. They're doing it for like a very small minority of people. They are selling the dream of like, I mean, the dream. Honestly, it's not really the dream of people. It's the dream of
Of their product.
CEOs and executives, and they're selling the dream of like replacing workers with AI or AGI, whatever. Which I mean, I would love not to have to work. Like I would love if humans could have a life of leisure and not have to work. That's a good outcome for me. But I mean, totally like so there are two things. Like right now I think like it's all about the money, just like trying to capture like as much investment money as possible, while selling the dream of AGI, because just like it's a good way to sell. Like the same way they say like they have thinking models, but it's not actually thinking. The same way they tell you like they have like PhD level intelligence, which is far from truth. And so there's a lot of like hype,
Overselling and hype.
a lot of overselling, with just the goal, I think, of getting rich.
Yeah. So another question from the chat. Do you think there is a feasible way for us to create litigation around these LLMs to protect us from bad actors while increasing innovation? Could it negatively impact or limit the future training ability and optimization people are currently capable of? Is the Wild West kind of nature we have right now the most beneficial space for us to be in, as far as freedom to explore is concerned?
Yeah, and let me just read this.
It's a long question.
Yeah. It's really hard to protect ourselves as individuals. I feel, we're in a system that we have very little leverage individually. I mean, that's because the system was built that way to make sure that people, are like kind of divided and powerless, so that a few can do whatever they want. I mean, there are things that are happening. Like, for instance, like, there's a lot of revolt, and it's justified about the stealing copyright and stuff like not even copyright, but like, the data used for training this LLM is kind of stolen from creators or from So there are stuff like I saw recently Cloudflare, which is a big company that kind of goes in between a lot of websites, like it's called a web application firewall. And they have introduced kind of a new standard. So there's something on the website called the robots.txt file that's been created a while ago to basically help guide search engines bots at the time for like indexing parts of the website, but not all of it. So it's a way basically to tell, but it's just kind of a not even a contract, but kind of a honor code or something like this, where like the bot that index web pages for search engines are supposed to like read this file and then like respect, you know, the wish of the website builder to either index or not index the page. So, you know, it's beneficial for websites to get indexed by search engines because they, you know, they want to be found. And if you don't, you know, that's how you use search engines to find websites. You rarely go directly to a website for the first time. So, so there's some benefits, but you know, sometimes like, they want to hide some part of it. And so Cloudflare has introduced something where like you can also say like if the bots for training AIs are allowed to use your content for training. And you know, it's a bit granular. You can specify like especially like, you know, is it to train the big models or is it to just like kind of augment you know, Google search results and stuff like this. And the thing is, Cloudflare, because they are so big, you know, they have a voice, like they can be heard by, you know, the tech giants that have these bots. So thankfully in this case, like they are doing something on behalf of all of us, but otherwise, like, you know, we're pretty powerless. I mean, the only thing I can tell you is you know, basically politics. Like we need to vote, but not just vote, like, you know, participate in democracy to make sure that we
to protect
progress,
rights.
and then that we, you know, influence regulations and stuff like this. And I think it's only through regulation that we can improve things. But yeah, individual users don't have the power.
Amen, on that note, do you want to tell people what you're doing next week?
Oh, right. So next week, I'm going to attend a big conference, international conference in Paris called Paris Peace Forum. And it's an organization, international, that kind of try to tackle all these challenging problems in a policy way, but at the intergovernmental level. So there will be the UN, but also representative from different countries, our big nonprofit organization that will kind of like try to see if there will be like for different problems. So climate change would be one of the problems, but also AI policies and if we could agree on, I know it seems unfeasible, but there is a lot of international push actually from the people who would love to see some ethical and oversight, like an international agreement on that, kind of like the Paris Accords on the climate change. So yeah, that's what I'm going to attend next week. Okay, other thing. Oh, so we've talked about this AI direction and everything. Quick, like a simple question: is this a bubble? And again, I'm not seeing it. I'm saying it's a bubble in terms of like investment, which I think it's a bubble as well. But are we overhyping and overpromising something that maybe we don't need to do all these things, or maybe we are like losing track of what's human is and like underrating the human part in our society? Like what do you think about that, being a software engineer that use AI and that is like part of the builder of these systems? What do you think?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in terms of investment, I mean, if you go to, if you read Ed Zitron, he has very, you know, like good arguments about why AI is a big bubble that's gonna burst pretty soon, probably in the next year or two, because just like OpenAI and the other companies are promising things that they cannot deliver. It's like just not feasible physically. And anyway, so there's that part. As I said before, like I think the tools are really great. Like the LLMs for coding, you know, great. I wouldn't want to go back in the same way I wouldn't want to go back to like the plain editors that don't have any syntax coloring or
Sure.
you know, like the different evolutions that we went through.
Yeah, you embrace the efficiency thing for sure.
Yeah. So we could do without, like, we've done it before, so we definitely could. But like once you start like trying something, it's like, if I remove the electricity from your house, like you wouldn't want that, right? And like you obtain some kind of like, oh, this is good, and you don't want to go back to the dark ages. So I hope we can keep using LLMs, for the future for coding. And I think, as I was saying before, like the LLMs are going to be useful for plenty of other things. There's also like, right now there's a lot of hype, like lots of startups are trying to put LLMs in everything. And you see that for, I mean, entirely everything. I'm sure like toothbrushes soon will have I mean, the LLMs. But they do it in a way that, trying to capture, funding and money and stuff like this. And if the AI bubble bursts, then there will be a lot of losers. But I'm sure some things will stay, because if they are genuinely useful, then people would still want to use them. And so I think there will be good things also kind of leftovers. Let's see about the bubble. Yeah, I'm sure, like, it also gave people kind of hope in AI.
In what example?
Well, like there's so much interest in LLMs that I think it's also spilling into like AI in general. Like a lot of young people probably are interested in doing research in that domain and stuff like this. And so we might see other things. Like right now it's only LLMs, but we might see, there might be a new breakthrough, different things that improve, other aspects, like not just the language.
I agree with you on the if it's like the if it's used, I guess if it's used as a tool to do good, for sure. But most of the things that are like over invested and over promised, I don't see any like specifically do good for humanity kind of message on them. It's more like everyone will be addicted to it and we are all stuck using this as the product that we have to go through it.
Mhm.
No question asked. Don't you feel like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the incentives are set by, a system, and the incentives are to make money for yourself, basically. And so that's what people are trying to do. They are trying to create startups to, trying to extract their piece of the pie. And yeah, like any good tools, like, you can use them for good, you can use it for bad. Like a knife, you can kill people, but you can also like cut things. It's very useful. The question, I guess, is like, is it more useful or more harmful? With the AI, like there's definitely a problem of access. Like I feel like currently it's very exclusive. It's only like rich countries that have good internet connections that can use them. And you know, like even like to get access to good models, probably you need to pay like subscription to OpenAI or what else. So currently, like it's trying. I mean, it's not being super beneficial. Like there's also environmental aspects of like running and creating all these data centers. I mean, kind of a nightmare, but I feel like the world is going to kind of a nightmare anyway. Don't want to be sorry to honor, but so currently I think it's there's probably even more harm than good. But I don't think it has to be, like, especially like if the AI bubble bursts and we kind of the people kind of get to reclaim the LLMs and create like much cheaper versions that don't need big data centers to run and democratize them. Then there is hope that it's going to become a useful tool for everybody.
Yeah. I
Well,
guess.
I was able to turn this into hope at the end.
Oh, we need that. So, yeah, I guess education and accessibility to it, to learn it and to know how to use it would be the solution.
Yeah. Well, solution, yeah. Not the solution, but I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So accessibility, what I mean by this is mostly being able. So the way this big large language model works is like they use billions of parameters, so you can download them on your computer and run them. So you need a computer first, and also like these are like very large files. Like, you download something that's like 20 gigs or larger, and to run them, like they use a lot of compute, like a lot of resource. So you need a kind of a powerful machine and stuff like this. So you cannot yet run them locally on anything. Like you need kind of the latest hardware, and that's very expensive. But like DeepSeek showed that you can do kind of the same level of quality with much smaller like resources needed. And I don't think we've seen the end of this. Like we can probably optimize way more.
So question about that: if DeepSeek is showing that, why then we are rushing to build like mega data centers and things like that? If we can optimize it and do it in a smaller scale, why?
It's a good question.
Because they already paid for the money and they're starting to construct this thing. That's why.
Basically, like if people are willing to keep, pouring money into OpenAI, why would they stop asking for money? Like, so the way they're doing it is they're just like promising the moon, like they're promising. I think the promise, is like they are trying to sell AGI probably. Like they're trying to sell like, wow, AI is going to be so good that it's going to shift like everything. It's going to replace workers and stuff like this. So like people are seeing this, like if they believe this, basically they're seeing this as a good investment. Like, okay, we're going to put money in this because once we discover this, it's like, it's like discovering electricity. It's like it's going to change the world and make us so much more efficient and so on. And we're going to produce. I think that's a very dangerous and limited vision. First, I mean, we're literally burning the planet, like building all of these GPUs and kind of wasting. I think it's waste resources like this. Yeah,
but it's just like I think I've never seen such a huge investment of money in AI companies that are losing money and not producing anything, just with the hope that someday it will be like, if we take an example, just OpenAI, it's bleeding billions of dollars, right, every year. And they are like writing contracts with NVIDIA, with AMD and others for billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And it's like how can you do these contracts if you are losing money every year just because you think in like it has to be a bubble? Like that's crazy. Like how can you, like without any profitability, how can you invest hundreds of billions of dollars of money that you don't have because you're losing money? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
And nowadays, I mean, beside these crazy company, like examples of companies that like cheat their way in, like just because you put an AI under the name, like whatever AI.com or something, you get like huge fundraising thing, and you don't need even to show the product or any like profitability plan or any business model. You just have an AI, so you are like going to conquer the world and raise money. But like, I don't know, I feel like there should be I don't know, I want to say like an overview, but I don't know if we can talk about an overview of it, but just like an independent organization that kind of see where we are going, and maybe someone has to say, wait, we have to slow down and like evaluate before like throwing all this money for something that maybe is not going to get us where we want. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's where maybe education is important. Like if people understood more how LLM works, then they wouldn't, give them the kind of like powers that we think they have. Like basically, it's a great illusion. Like I understand why people think that we're building artificial intelligence, AGI, because when you talk to an LLM, especially like if you've kind of been following the kind of the trend, like, you tried like ChatGPT a few years ago, and it was, producing like, very robotic sounding English with a lot of mistake, enunciation, stuff like this. And by increasing the size of the models, it feels better and better. And to the point where, like, with, for instance, like, there's this famous test, the Turing test, where the goal was to be able to recognize human versus a machine. Like if it's, you're kind of blinded, you don't see, you talk to them through like an interface, and you tell the difference between a human and a machine.
Mhm.
And I mean, we've solved the Turing test. Like that's a done thing. Like, it's very easy these days to confuse LLM for a real human, because we've mastered the language. We've finally cracked the code of like language. And so, that's one thing that, is definitely a progress. Like, we've had this kind of Turing test challenge for years, and, finally, like we've, really like kind of obliterated it. We can do that. And so, yeah, we've done a ton of progress, but like, that doesn't mean, so people seeing this progress, might think like, okay, so we just keep increasing the size, like OpenAI is promising, and that's it, like we're going to get more intelligence.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to reach like a plateau. It kind of already did. Like GPT-5 was not that much better than GPT 4.5 or GPT-4, like,
Mhm.
it actually did worse on a bunch of measures and stuff like this. And even like, the kind of how the money is spent for Twitch. All right. How the money is spent for improving these things. They are kind of building, like limitations to make sure that you cannot do certain things that are harmful, for instance. But they are not like fundamentally rethinking, the way LLM work. And
Yeah.
so the progress, like, that's not how we're going to get to AGI, basically. Like, we're going to get to better and better illusions, and maybe some people are convinced that that's sufficient, basically. Like, if you can fake your job sufficiently well that I cannot tell the difference, then basically you're doing the job that needs to be done. So, maybe that's good enough. But yeah, I don't think, for any like real, like important job
Mhm.
that is connected to the real world, we can replace people with machines right now with the technology that we have.
I'm just reading some questions from the chat. What exactly qualifies as unethical usage? That's the balance that's difficult to strike. What do you think? For
Unethical.
example, for only your field, like as a software engineer, what would
Well,
be unethical?
I mean, unethical would be just like, using LLM produced code without reviewing it, I feel. Like, that's unethical. It's the same thing, like, if you let a robot like build a bridge or something, would you feel
Would you
comfortable?
go on top of it?
Yeah,
Not sure.
okay. So it's funny, like the software industry, it works a bit differently from like other engineering fields. Like, for bridge, you don't take any risk. You don't build a bridge if you're not sure of everything. In software, like, we ship software with bugs all the time, and for some reason that's, always been the case. That's acceptable. We fix the bugs later. Of course, it depends on the software. Like, if you're building things that must work from the start, like,
Like for a hospital or something, you
yeah,
want to
yeah,
send it bug free, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, even there, like, there could be bugs. Yeah, I was thinking of like, space code, like, the robots we send on Mars or something like this. Like, there's only one shot. Like, if you miss this shot, then that's it. Like, the software, you cannot like patch the bug once the rover is crashed on Mars or something like this. So that's, yeah, some example of where like code is really, like, accuracy is very important. But yeah, I think, yeah, unethical would be, just this, like, trusting code without verifying.
Mhm.
For software, like I don't know, there are like issues of copyright, like licensing, the code. For instance, like using open source code to build non-open code. So when you build software, you always kind of attach a license to your code, and open source software, the code that you can find openly on GitHub, for instance, is definitely used for training AI. Like GitHub Copilot is probably like the most obvious example.
Mhm.
Uh, and is it allowed to do that? Because the license files might say like if you take some of this code, then you need to provide the proper
Mhm.
citation. Basically, like you need to provide the license of our code, and there's
Mhm.
licenses like GPL, which tells you like if you use any of our code, then you need to open source your own code. So you're not allowed to do it and keep it secret. You need to open source your code. And when LLM is trained on data like this, it's going to reproduce some parts of the code that it's seen. It might not reproduce it exactly, but like it's kind of a gray area of like, are you violating the license? It's not,
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
clear.
I see. What's the difference between generative AI and LLMs?
So LLM is a form of generative AI. I think we also include in that generating images.
What does it mean, generative AI?
Yeah, it means basically you create content from an input, derived from an input. So a prompt, basically.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's the difference. I mean, it's funny because when we say AI today, we really mean generative AI, I feel. But of course, like AI existed long before generative AI. So, uh, I mean, even generative AI probably existed before, but like AI is kind of all encompassing of like anything that tries to imitate human things,
Mhm.
human cognition, I guess, using a machine. So machine learning is something that has existed for a long time, is useful for tons
Mhm.
of applications in science,
Mhm.
things. Um, and yeah, generative AI is the thing that got extremely popular since, I guess, the release of ChatGPT. Um, and being able to generate images, videos, music, and text.
Mm. I
That's
feel nowadays software engineer university teaching is very different from the 90s and the 2000 when we were teaching software engineering in general. Because I'm sure nowadays in they have this data science field with, maybe they should, like, I don't know if they teach how to use, for example, LLMs in as a part of the curriculum for software engineers. You know that? Because I'm sure the teaching of these days is different from the teaching of when you were studying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure like some places probably do. Probably not all of them. I don't think it's necessarily like completely mainstream, but I'm sure all students definitely do, or at least try it. Um, and yeah, it's interesting. Like you can learn. The thing also is like the technology changes really fast right now.
Yeah.
So a few months ago, like I had a colleague who was kind of like developing his specific way of prompting by saying like, before you do any code, I want you first to write a file with a plan, detailed plan of what you're trying to do, and then ask me questions so that we can like clarify the plan. And then only once we have the plan finalized, then you can start coding and stuff like this. And you know, it took him some effort to like kind of come up with this way of working with the LLM, but then like now it comes kind of standard, like on the software that we use. Um, there's a button that says like make a plan, and you can
Mm.
work that way. Um, so it's hard to build a curriculum on something that changes this rapidly, I feel.
Mhm.
Um, and it's probably better for people to just kind of experiment by themselves and to, or I guess you can build a curriculum that contains this kind of experimentation, or just like stay on top of the changes. But like, yeah, it's a very rapidly moving field.
Would you qualify the field of AI same way they were talking about crypto at some point? Remember when crypto was like fringe and no one would be crazy enough to invest in it, and now it's like mainstream. Would you say it's the same with AI, where like people are like overhyping, and at some point everywhere it would be AI in it?
Yeah, there are some similarities. Like, one similarity is the name crypto. It used to mean cryptography. Now
Yes, actually.
so AI used to mean like a lot of machine learning and a lot of things. Now it means generative AI. So that's the first one. The second one is like people trying to find uses for it. Like, a lot of startups, again, like for crypto, were excited about using the blockchain for everything. And so there were a lot of startups being created and trying to find a use, so kind of like putting the tool before the
need.
and so there's definitely the same thing going on with AI. The scammy aspect of crypto,
And the fraud, there are some crazy.
this for AI. I mean, there's that also. Like, AI is used for like spamming and phishing and a lot of bad stuff going on. So actually, there's a lot of parallels. Yes, the fact that a lot of money got invested, but then it kind of popped and did nothing. We'll see about that. I think it's probably gonna happen too. But then, like, there's nothing bad about the blockchain. It's a great tool as well. You just, you cannot just apply it to everything. Like, you wouldn't, hit with a hammer, or like, there's a right tool for the right job, and if you try to use the wrong tool for the job, it doesn't help. It's probably harmful. So same thing. Like, I think AI is going to be very useful for some stuff, not for everything. I think for coding, it's going to be remain very useful, like it is already. But it doesn't mean we need to put AI everywhere, like like we want to do. So yeah, there's going to be changes, startups that fail because they're just like kind of forcing AI, and right now it works because investors are looking for this. But yeah. So there's a bunch of parallels, yes.
Interesting. Mandy, do you have other questions?
No, I don't. I think we're running short on time, but thank you very much for the interesting conversation. I think we learned a lot today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
What else? So you want to talk again about the fundraising, Mandy, before we leave?
Sure. Well, maybe we should end Bob's stream and move it over, move everyone over to the Real Good stream.
Sure.
But
yeah.
Thank you again, Dr. Leblanc, for your time, and we really appreciate it. And it was great conversation. I think people really learned a lot about coding and how AI is interacting with that, and hopefully that they should keep learning how to code.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, chat. We're gonna move this over, and so Dr. LeBlanc, you can just like hang out for a second. Chat, we're gonna do the raid thing. Make sure you're following Real Good AI on Twitch, but also on social medias, because we're gonna be streaming during the Full Steam Ahead event. We're also gonna be sharing and or talking about other people's streams that are going on during the event. So follow the newsletter, follow the socials, follow us. We're about to raid over. So the stream is going to continue, but if you want to see what we're going to talk about in a minute, you have to follow us right now, because my stream is ending and we will only be live at twitch.tv/realgoodai. So we'll see you over there, chat, in just a minute.